Good afternoon and good evening wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to the GRDC World Sprint Challenge Season 2. We are here for round 6 in Brazil, and it should be a very interesting race indeed after a frantic round 5 in Imola. My name is Max Ring, and alongside me, of course, it's not Ben Sapsford as usual. It is the lovely Joseph Black, a familiar face here at GRDC, stepping in this evening. How are you, Joseph, on this Wednesday evening?
I'm very good. I mean, I could do my best Ben Sapsford impression, but I get the impression that people watching here at GRDC get enough of Ben anyway. But yeah, we have a very good evening, which is the reason why I've stepped in, and I'm excited to get going.
Yeah, we do have a very good evening indeed in store for us. The drivers are about to head into qualifying shortly. Of course, the format for this evening is a 10-minute private hyperpole session. So everybody's doing their laps at the same time, but they have no other cars on their screen. Them on the circuit by themselves for about an hour and 15-minute race, taking us through this multi-class action. And plenty of drama can be unfolded. Of course, last time out in Imola, we saw the action that came when it came to strategies. But in the LMP2 class, we actually saw Roland Sux's perfect streak come to an unfortunate end. And for Sebastian Nepotec in the hypercar category, though, he was able to hang on to that perfect streak. But for Thomas Leverick, who's not here this evening, he broke that streak from Roland Sux. Joseph, Roland's going to be looking to come back with a vengeance here in Brazil. Wants to claim back that race victory, which was really just brutally snatched out of his hands thanks to those strategic errors.
Yeah, we'll see what they're going to be able to do. Of course, Sao Paulo, very open to something along the lines of some fights. And, well, it's one of those circuits where you expect that people are going to fight, and it's going to get a little bit scrappy. But yeah, we are going to head into the race day in just a couple of moments' time, and then we'll get the opportunity to have a look at the racing action that we have ahead of us around the 4.309 kilometer circuit of the Autodromo Jose Carlos Apache. One of my personal favorite circuits, and well, it should make everything just that little bit spicier.
Yes, it certainly shall. And there are cars on track now, so let's head over trackside to bring you the action from qualifying as they just exit out of the first sector. So here we are then on board with Mika Perzush as he's heading through turns 6 and 7 on his first attempt in qualifying. Of course here, Joseph, especially with the hypercars, it'll take them a few laps to get up to speed, get their tyres into the right operating window, and that's where we could see some drivers potentially make some mistakes and some real qualifying enders, especially around a circuit like Brazil, where the walls, even though it's a permanent racing facility, around most of the corners, the walls are very close to you.
Yeah, it's one of those circuits where it's just, you can't really afford any sort of mistakes at all. And, well, in the hypercars especially, you can't afford any mistakes. As the cars get quicker, the margins for error get smaller, and those in the hypercars at the moment will be looking to try and avoid any such problems. Up to the line then for the first, the first driver to, I believe, begin their lap. 7 laps of this circuit, and actually it's Pertush coming to the end of it, a 1:25.201, and De Vries, Hendrik De Vries, that is, 1.5 seconds off. So the first couple of lap times coming in for the hypercars, and well, the first lap time coming in for the LMP2 as well. It's Cook with a 1:30.132.
Yeah, that's done there from Cook. Benchmark time in that LMP2 category. Alexis Fiebrock now goes to the top of those LMP2 times. Clemente Ivoron goes into first in the LMGT3 category. Pertush, who was leading the way for quite a while out in Imola. Unfortunately for him, saw a few mistakes come into play when it came into the dying embers of this race. Actually, no, sorry, it was Matteo Bouquet who was leading a majority of that race in Imola. And he, in the dying embers, just got the strategy a little bit wrong, just came in a little bit too early from those wets. And that allowed Sebastian Nepotec to take 5th successive race victory this season. He takes that provisional pole away from Petrush. Now Peteke, I don't think was able to get the last lap clean and valid, as he's now heading up into Yunsao. So as he exits out of there, up into the final few corners, Nepoteket looking to keep that perfect streak alive. And of course, we've not mentioned this so far this evening here, Joseph, but it's double points for the evening.
Yes, which will make it just that little bit more exciting. Double points for this evening, which is very, very intriguing, and will allow the opportunity for those drivers who are good at Brazil to really get an advantage and take their well, they're going to have an opportunity, and it's whether they take it or not. And yeah, we'll certainly see what they're going to be able to do. 5 minutes left in this qualifying session, and at the moment it is Nepoteke up the top, Bouquet in second place, just 2 tenths behind, and Patush rounding out the podium for the hypercars at the moment. Then the LMP2, it's Shuksh up at the top with a 27.8, Vicerock 1.6, and Cook 1.6 off of Shuksh at the moment, showing how good his lap is. Then it's Ivarone, Starkey, and 40 on the podium for the GT3s. Of course, they would have had practice in those GT3s thanks to the LM GT3 Challenge, but they would have had even more practice. We are on to round number 5 now, the World Sprint Championship, so they should be very well versed in those cars. And well, we've got Nepoteke up at the top at the moment for the Porsche and for the hypercars. But yeah, 4 minutes 21 now left in this qualifying session, and there's not many opportunities for these drivers.
No, there certainly is not. These drivers, of course, with only 4 minutes left on the clock, need to get their lap times in now, especially if you're in the LMGT3 category. You'll have the least amount of time to be setting those laps in than the others, because, of course, you are the slowest category throughout the field. Nepoteke extends his advantage at the top of the times. He's now 7 tenths clear of Matteo Bouquet, who's on his lap. We just saw Craig Starkey improve ever so slightly on his previous attempt, and he is just behind Everone by 3.5 tenths of a second. And actually, Clemente now heading up to the line. Can he strengthen his grasp on pole position? Crosses the line now. Is it an improvement? No, it just doesn't seem so thus far from the McLaren driver. Not able to find that time he needs. Of course, Kimi Lehtinen, last time out in Imola, took pole position and dominated that race. Can he do the same here this evening in his Porsche? Try and extend his championship lead over Di Catania. Heading through the final few corners now for Timmy Lehtinen. Of course, you may know him from the likes of the LMGT3 Challenge in those opening rounds. Across the line comes Timmy Lehtinen. Can he snatch that provisional pole away? No, 2 tenths shy of Everone. Di Catania is on his lap time as well, but with 2 minutes and 50 left to go, time certainly tumbling, and the pressure starts to mount.
Yeah, it's really, the pressure's on now as the track has evolved to a point where the drivers will need to, well, they'll just need to be getting those lap times down now. They've got the bankers in, and now they have the opportunity for getting the push forward and getting those last few laps thrown in. Nepoteke setting that time at the top that is currently not been beaten. That is the lap time of 1:23.798. Bouquet in second place, 6 tenths back. Patush also 6 tenths back, and so nobody's able to breach that gap. A similar situation in the LMP2s, where Shuksh is still a whole second clear of anybody else in those LMP2s, and well, it's going to be a very, very good finish as Nepoteke into the pit lane. He's not going to come out again. That's going to be the end of his qualifying session.
Yes, it certainly is going to be the end of Nepoteke's session, and for him, I think he's got a good stranglehold on that pole position. I don't know if Bouquet or Patush are really going to be able to fight that one. Of course, Roland Sux, he may have lost his perfect race streak, but he still is looking to keep that perfect pole position streak alive. He's coming to pit lane as well. Same with Richard Cook, and Vivok has gone really off the road there at Yunsao, so he won't be finding an improvement either. It seems it's all going to be down to the LMGT3 battle for pole position, and Timmy Lehtinen has found a little more time on Clemente Ivarone's lap time. It's just not enough thus far. So for Lehtinen, he's got one more stab at this cherry here, Joseph. The question is, will he be able to do it? Try and take back-to-back pole positions this season.
Well, he's going to try and take the opportunity heading out of the first couple of corners now. He is a little bit down on his time, but there's much room to improve. That didn't make sense in English, but you know what I mean. Anyway, he's heading out of Interlagos now, and he's still just that little bit down. But Timmy Lettinen is going to come up to the next few corners. I think he's going to find some time in this second sector, and it might be enough to breach that 10th that he needs to catch up to Verone. And at the moment, he's about half a tenth up, so he's found that half a tenth of time. And Timmy Lettinen, really, I said he was going to have to find this time in the second sector. He's doing just that. We've got not many drivers to go, the majority in the pit lane. The only drivers out of the pit lane, Mika Patush, Clemente Iverone, Timmy Lettinen, who we're watching on board with, and then Salvo Di Catania, Dan Wilson, and Eero Visuri. Those drivers are the ones not in the pit lane. Everybody else is and have given up on their laps. Now, final couple of corners beckon for Timmy Lettinen. He was purple in the second. Is he going to be able to go purple overall in his class? The LMGT3s, he might go up to the very top of them. We will see. As up to the line he comes now, as the checkered flag is waved, and Timmy Lettinen snatches that pole position away by over a tenth of a second in the end to Clement. So that is a very good lap time from Timmy. In the middle sector now, Salvo Di Catania. And he's not too far off Timmy either.
No, he certainly is not, and same with Averone as well. They're both still pushing on their final attempt. So Timmy Lettinen's pole position lap time is not said and done just yet. It's not all settled here in the LMGT3 field. Oh, we're going to see Di Catania fight back against his championship rival in the middle sector. He's down by 0.6 of a second, so I think that's going to be it for the Ferrari, as all the attention turns to McLaren of Clemente Averone, who's aborted his lap. So Timmy Lettinen, unless Di Catania has a monstrous final sector of just a brilliant exit out of Yinsao, it is seeming like Timmy Lettinen will keep that pole position. Here comes Di Catania to the line. What's it going to be for the Ferrari? He stays 5th fastest, just behind Craig Starkey, a personal best qualifying, I think, this season for him, and Jordan 40 as well in 3rd. But it's Timmy Lettinen on pole in the LMGT3s. Roland Sux continues his domination in the LMP2 category in qualifying. He makes it 5 in a row. And for Nepo Tekin as well, the championship leader in all 3 divisions, taking pole position. That's exactly how they would have wanted to start this evening, Joseph.
It certainly is, and that's sort of the way that we would have expected them to start the evening as well, being on those pole positions. And now it's really crunch time where they take the opportunity, and can they convert those pole positions into race victories? Of course, that is the name of the game, and that is what every single driver who was ever qualified on pole wanted to do. They have wanted to take it home, and with just 1 minute left before we go to the green flag racing, Nepoteki on that pole position is ready. He's on overall pole. Then it's Patush in P2, Bouquet in 3rd place, and Hendrik de Vries in 4th. Sebastian Borgson, Remy Alexander Borgso, and Samuele Bonaventura, as well as Max Holstenius, round out the hypercar order. And then a smaller LMP2 grid, but no less competitive. Roland Schucks is in the pole position for the LMP2s. Richard Cook will line up alongside him, and Alexis Weissrock and Rich Green are in 11th and 12th overall, and 3rd and 4th in class. Then Timmy Lettinen got that pole position in the end in the hotly contested LMGT3 class. He took pole ahead of Clemente Iverone, who could not get the bottle at the end of his laps. And Jordan 40 will line up just behind on the next row of the grid alongside Craig Starkey, and those two hoping to get a good performance in today. Salvo Di Catania and Franklin Stegging on what will be the 9th row of the grid, and Simon Kingsbury and Dan Wilson on the 10th. Then the final drivers, Eero Visuri, Gary Barham, John Waldridge and Kyle Benton, as we are ready to get underway. And that's 24 drivers on the grid, and the top one at the moment is Sebastian Nepoteki.
Yes, Nepoteki, the man who has won every race so far this season in the hypercar category, looking to keep that streak alive. So, for Nepoteki, Sux and Lettinen, they all lead their own respective championships. They're all on pole position. see if they're able to extend those leads, or will they be eaten into. Nepotec will lead us to the green flag here in Brazil. Are we going to see somebody break the streak of the man in the hypercar field? Will Roland Sux reclaim what was once he's at the top of the standings, and will Timmy Lettinen make it back-to-back race victories? They're all going to be answered in the next hour and 15 minutes as we are underway here in Brazil. It's a brilliant start from Nepotec in the front of the field, but Patush is going to fight this one to the outside line. Goes the Ferrari. Is he going to be able to get by on the Porsche? It's still side-by-side heading down into the centre S. It's a Patush on the optimal inside line. Does streak clear of Nepotec. There's a little bit of contact between the Porsche and the Peugeot of Bouquet and Nepotec as we head into the Retro Bosta and into the Sino de Largo. Who's going to come out on top here as there's some moves potentially further back from Hendrik de Vries on Sebastian Borgsen. A little bit of a slide there from de Vries. Nothing being made there at the front of the LMGT3 field. Lettinen's cleared Clemente Evore by 1.4 seconds, and Roland Sux is 8 tenths clear of Richard Cook in the LMP2. So all the pole sitters in the LMP2 and GT3 fields getting away nicely, but for Sebastian Nepotec, just like we saw in Imola, losing that lead quite quickly.
Yeah, not great for Sebastian Nepotec. He's going to want to fight back. And he's in that second place at the moment behind Patush, so he's in the greatest possible opportunity to be able to make his way through and back into the lead of this overall race as the first lap is coming to a close. And as you say, it is the pole position holders in every single class apart from the hypercars that holds that lead, as that's a huge slide. I think that was Hendrik de Vries in the background, and he is going to drop a lot of time. 1.8 seconds now behind Bouquet, whereas he was just right on the rear. But switching back to the battle for the lead, it's alongside for Nepotec and Patush. It's the outside line then for Nepotec, but it's not quite going to be enough to try to pressure into the first corner. Now they head down the hill and towards Desida de Largo. The next overtaking opportunity is instead Desida de Largo, turn number 4, and I think Bouquet is telling Nepotec to get on with it, to make his way through, as there's a 2-second gap between Bouquet and Hendrik de Vries. So these three look like they're already sealing that hypercar podium.
Yeah, they do like to streak away early from the rest of the field. These three just can't be matched by the rest of the train behind thus far this season. And for Nepotec, it's still right behind Patush. He's going to look for the move here into turn 8. No, he's just going to sit behind for now. But he's all over the back of Patush. While all that was going on, Craig Starkey was able to get past Jordan 40 for second place as Ivorian has gone down further and further throughout this field. Don't know if he's got a little bit of damage to that McLaren, but currently down in 5th place from a starting position of second. Exactly not what he would have wanted. Same with Deacon Tanya as well, who started 5th, has fallen to 7th too. So for two drivers in the championship battle, that is not what they needed to keep their hopes alive. As Remy Alexander Borgshow has, I think, made a mistake. He's allowed Roland Sux through. Sux is in front of one of the hypercars, but back at the front of the field, will Nepotec make the move this time around?
Think he's going to have to stick in behind. Indeed he is, and he might set this one up though into the next braking zone, into the next overtaking opportunity. By the way, in the meantime, Roland Schucks has made his way past Remy Alexander Borgso, and that is the LMP2 driver ahead of the hypercar driver. So that is an interesting development. And well, as they stay in formation, looking further down, Clemente Ivorone is having an absolutely horrendous time in the LMGT3s. He's dropped down to 6th overall after challenging for that pole position early on, and well, he might be well, he's going to have to fight back from the back, and he's trying to overtake Gary Barham into the first few corners, but no such luck for him. But yeah, looking at that lead battle once again, and Bouquet staying within range, but I think the main battles are remaining with the LMGT3 class.
Yeah, it certainly does seem so, as a Porsche there moves themselves out of the toe. I think that's John Waldridge trying to get that move done there on Simon Kingsbury. And Kingsbury runs wide. This allows Waldridge now to get that run through to Sino de Largo, make his way through, and could potentially get Clemente Evore into the right-hander, of 6 and 7. But just having to sit behind for now. Wasn't close enough, but could go for the dive into turn 8. Here he comes on the McLaren, the Porsche trying it. But brilliant defensive driving from Clemente, and he stays in 6th place as Waldridge tries to fight his way further up the order. You can see now trying to duck to the left, try dummy to the right, and into Pico Tabato. There's some contact made between the pair. The Porsche is sent into a spin, and Waldridge, all that hard work, all that progress he just made has just been sent up in smoke as he spins round and unfortunately drops to the back of the field in 11th place. Timmy Lettinen is 4.3 seconds clear in this category. Richard Cook is 5.3 seconds behind Roland Sooks in the LMP2 class. And for Patouche, he's now going side by side with Nepoteket up into 6 and 7 and still is just able to hold on. And with how big these hypercars are here, Joseph, it's extremely difficult to make that overtake around this circuit.
Very much the safety procedures and everything they've added to the hypercars to try and make them go faster has just come at the detriment of potentially the fighting in this circuit. But it means that they have to fight just that little bit harder to fight for those positions further up, and that's exactly what they're going to do right now. Mika Patouche leading the way, and Nepoteket chasing in behind still as they head out of the final corner for what will be the 5th time on this circuit. And, well, we're only about 10 minutes into this race, and these top three still fighting away. Looking further down, Simon Kingsbury is going to try and take his opportunity and make his way past Clemente Verone. And now, so is Ira Visuri as well, as the fight at the top will continue. And, well, it's going to be Mika Patouche defending very well to that inside line and holding onto the position.
Very nice driving from all three of the top three drivers as they now head down into the scene of Interlagos. And is this where Nepoteket gets that move done? Is he going to dart out to the left-hand side late on the brakes? No, Patouche just able to hold on, but it's now all about the run out of turn 4 and 5 and up the hill into 6 and 7. This is where we saw Nepoteket potentially try that move last lap. This time around isn't close enough to get it signed, sealed and delivered. Oh, and actually Nepoteket goes round, carrying too much speed through the right-hander of 6 and 7 and sees himself go around from 2nd place on the road, drops to 3rd. Luckily, isn't overtaken by Hendrik de Vries. That's how much of a gap they built up. But for Nepoteket, the man who's been perfect all season long, at the earliest convenience at the start of this race, luckily it's at this stage of the race, but has gone round at 6 and 7, and that's now put Bouquet onto the back of Patouche and given him a healthy advantage over the championship leader.
Yeah, perfect chance for Bouquet and Nepoteket. Unfortunate there. But, yeah, that was, as you say, the gap that they built up. There's 5 seconds between Bouquet and de Vries, and Nepoteket just bridging that gap in between them. But that is an incredible, incredible opportunity for Patouche and for Bouquet at the top of the field. And Nepoteket 2.6 now off of Bouquet. That is a great chance for Patouche and Bouquet to try to break free as, well, that has just spiced that fight up, but also kept those two at the top of the field. Looking further down to the bottom of the field, and there is aggressive fights going on there too. There's been, well, I don't believe any DNFs at the very least, but John Waldridge is trying to fight with Salvo di Catania for the last competitive place on the road, looking to that inside line. Not opened up an opportunity. Is he going to go for the switchback move? Oh, he is, and it's lovely. That is going to be John Waldridge past Salvo di Catania in pretty good fashion.
Yeah, that was a lovely move from Waldridge, and that's what he tried on Clemente when they made that contact only a few laps ago. And he's now all over the back of Clemente Evore, and he's made his way through up into 9th place. A brilliant run out of Jens Sau. I wonder here, Joseph, if there is any damage from on both Ivore's and Ivorone, sorry, his car, or Di Catania, because they're really seeming to be struggling. And Ivorone started 2nd on the grid, so we know he's got the pace in that car. And he's fallen down to 10th, Di Catania down to 11th. And when their championship rival, Timmy Lettinen, is leading the pack by 6.2 seconds, surely you think there's something wrong with both their cars, maybe coming to blows at the early stages of this race.
Yes, it's well, it's going to be an interesting one to watch throughout this entire race as to what is going to happen. 1 minute 6 left in the race, just ticking under that now, and the gaps are starting to develop with the drivers in the field. And well, it's going to be an interesting one to watch, because I think there's going to be fights continuing all race long, which is why we like the multi-class racing. Simon Kingsbury currently chasing Gary Barham. This is for the positions in the LMGT3 class, as that is a driver gone round. And that's an unfortunate moment for, I believe that to be Salvador Catania, who's been spun around, the number 27. And indeed it is. So Salvador Catania, he was being lapped and he's just been tagged on the way through. That is unfortunate, and that really puts pay to his race.
It certainly does, and Matteo Bouquet can see himself one very lucky boy. With Di Catania spinning back to the racing line, he just avoided the back of that Peugeot, and Bouquet now is using this to attack Petouche in front. You can see Nepoteket in the background trying to hunt down that top two and has made some good inroads. That gap now 1.7 seconds between him and Bouquet, and coming into this traffic, this is a perfect opportunity for Nepoteket to get this move done, but Petouche goes later on the brakes, but goes deep, could be held up by the BMW. Some contact is made between the top two in the hypercar division, and you can see Nepoteket is going closer and closer. He's starting to hunt down these drivers nearly into the back of the BMW there. I think that's of Dan Wilson as we head into the Sino de Lago. And for Bouquet, he's just having to sit behind Petouche for now, but this has really invited Nepoteket into the fight.
He really very much has. Nepoteket back into it, and very much right into the thick of the action. Where they're going to lap these drivers is where they're going to see opportunities open up, and there's another driver right just ahead of them now, and those drivers are going to try and get their way through with no real problems, but there's a few problems there for, well, particularly Bouquet, trying to make his way through, and they have managed to get through pretty comfortably. But this is the beauty of multi-class racing, the lapping, which is going to turn races on its head, whether it's for the hypercars, whether it's for the LMP2s or the LMGT3s. It's always going to spice the race up somewhat. And yeah, Mika Petouche continuing to lead this race, but Bouquet and Nepoteket closing very much in.
This is the closest we've seen this top three all season long. Usually the gaps are around about 1 to 2 seconds, but now all three of them under that 1 second margin. 9/10 separating Petouche from Nepoteket as we now head down the CNRS as they got for a majority of that LMGT3 traffic. They've got 4 more to go, and first of those being Franklin Stegning. So for Bouquet, he'll want some more drama to happen into Petouche's favour, and now he'll try and get that move done in the Peugeot on that Ferrari. Saw it into the center S's, then potentially up into the Pico de Pato. Just wasn't able to get it done as we now head up into 6 and 7. Stegnick getting out of the way quite nicely at Bouquet, but caught it at the wrong time there really here, didn't he? Joseph was lost a bit of time to Petouche, and Nepoteket fell really far back there. Unfortunately being blocked by the BMW. Nothing either driver could do.
Yeah, not at the moment, and well, this is where the lapping is going to cost drivers a lot of time, and well, it looks like it may well have cost Nepoteket a lot of time here as alongside the two leaders pull, and that means that Craig Starkey might be involved in this battle inadvertently. Through goes Bouquet into the lead of the race. Through they both go on Craig Starkey. It's going to compromise the exit of Mika Petouche, and it's going to open up the opportunity for Sebastian Nepoteket to try and pull alongside. He went onto the grass to try and get through on Petouche, but no such luck. No moves able to be made at this point, but it might all come to blows once again, and down the main straight, Petouche pulls to the inside. Nepoteket dares him to go even further to the inside. Petouche takes the bait, and Nepoteket just, well, in the end, pulls across. Petouche pulls back across to defend, and that was that for that battle. But that shows that there's the elbows that are starting to come out for both Petouche and Nepoteket, as neither willing to yield that easily.
It just shows that even with these these LMGT3 scrapping away, it just opens those doors for some potential drama to be involved. It's just a little bit of contact from Jordan 40 onto the side of Mika Petouche, which was neither driver's fault. It was just Pico de Pato is very much an understeery corner, and it was just the Mustang understeering into the side of the Ferrari. As you can now see, Timmy Lettinen getting out of the way for these drivers, and Nepoteket's going to try to do everything he can to get past Mika Petouche. Bouquet hasn't really shot away after all that squabbling. He's now been brought back in, reeled back in by Mika Petouche, as we've just had our first 15 minutes down in about 40 seconds time. And all this drama kicking off already. Of course, we'll have a pit stop during this race, and that's where time can be won or lost, as Sebastian Borges has been overtaken once again by Roland Sux. As we head down that main straight once more, it's Bouquet from Patouche from Nepoteket, and these guys all squabbling tooth and nail over this race victory, which, don't forget, is double points.
It very much is, and that is where mistakes and things going wrong for these drivers is really going to cost them in the race, which is where I think a lot of them are a little bit more scared of just anything particularly going wrong as they head down the straight. Once again, that is 2 drivers through on, I believe that might be Salvo Di Catania getting lapped for a second time, and Nepoteket stuck behind. Not for very long, but that's going to play onto his mind just that little bit, I think. And it's one of those things where you want to get through as soon as you can. You're going to have to wait just that, that extra half a tenth of a second, and it's really going to play on your mind mentally, as you know that you are probably quicker than Patouche. You're just getting the bad luck as it stands. And yeah, these 3 are going to continue to fight all race long. And well, we're going to see who ends up coming out on top. As don't forget as well, that is for the overall lead. Of course, they are split into classes, but it's always good to get said overall lead all done with. And Bouquet leading Patouche, as you can see there on your screens, the overall standings. And well, everybody up to 11th place. Timmy Lettinen has been lapped now, as the LMGT3s have a lot of pace disadvantage in comparison to the hypercars. But when you have a look at the individual gaps, it's not too bad. Jordan Forty only 7/10 behind Craig Starkey. Franklin Stegging just the 1.7 behind Aniro Vissuri. Closing in on Gary Barham a rate of knots. It looks like either the very top of the hypercars or that midfield, the fight for P2 or P4 in the LMGT3s is where the fight really is. And I think it's going to be continuing along that trend until the very end.
Yeah, it certainly will. Of course, these drivers got to use everything they possibly can throughout this race, and Bouquet has spun from the race lead. Matteo Bouquet through 6 and 7 has spun around. He's carried too much speed or touched the grass on entry, and he has seen himself go from the race lead once more, just like in Imola. And unfortunately this time it's a driver error, seeing him spin around from that race victory that he was looking so comfortable in. He was 1.7 seconds clear of Mika Patouche, and for the Peugeot, disaster strikes in this early stages of the race, and that's now put Patouche back into that race lead with Nepoteket in second. And look at the margin they now have over the Peugeot, 10 seconds. He'll need a monstrous rest of the race to bring that down and need some luck with the traffic. But for Matteo Bouquet, that is heartbreak at the earliest possible window.
Nepoteket made a mistake early on that he was able to save himself from. Matteo Bouquet has made a mistake, and I'm not sure whether he's going to be able to save himself from that. And it just feels like we're waiting now for Mike Patouche to make a mistake and drop down the order, just like the other 2 have. As well, there is a bit of... Well, there's a couple of problems going on in the LMGT3 class as well. I believe Gary Barham and Dan Wilson may well have had an incident. But yeah, they've ended it up all right in the end, those drivers in 7th and 8th in the LMGT3 class. But Barham going very slowly out of one of the S's. And I think he may well have had contact with somebody else, potentially, said Dan Wilson. But yeah, I mean, it's going to continue to fight. Gary Barham, I think, might actually have damage because he's 1.2 off now, and it just doesn't feel like he's going to be in that fight anymore. But speaking of fights, and well, we watched a hypercar of Matteo Bouquet having to lap those drivers all over again. Speaking of the hypercars, Nepoteket and Patouche, just the 6/10 between them, and they're going to head down the main straight once again. And well, we might be seeing some changes for the overall lead.
Yes, we certainly might indeed, as we see Nepoteket tuck into that slipstream and getting closer and closer as they head up this main straight. You can see Clemente Avore just in front. Is he going to play a little bit of a part in this? And Nepoteket isn't able to get past the McLaren just yet, and the McLaren does take the racing line, of course entitled to do so. You're not meant to, you're not like a blue flag in F1 where you have to get out the way. You have to keep your line and remain predictable, and that's cost Nepoteket around about a second. That is disastrous for the Porsche hypercar. and he now has a lot of work on his hands if he wants to bring this gap back into his favour. And for Patouche, he's got a lifeline there from the McLaren. But of course, only 20 minutes into this race, still plenty to play for. 55 minutes and 27 seconds to go. We've had so much drama in the opening stages of this race as Gary Barham is all over the back of Iro Vizuri once more as they now squabble over seventh place in the road, and Dan Wilson just a little bit further up for 6th. So in the LMGT3 category, there could also be some squabbling there. And for Iro Vizuri in that Mercedes, he seems like he's the man on the mission. He's the one making his way out the order.
Yeah, he got through on Gary Barham, and now he's looking for the opportunity to get past Dan Wilson into the first corner, looking to the outside, but Dan just taking the racing line and not opening up the opportunity and going all defensive, which is where some drivers can go wrong, where they try and get too defensive. Dan Wilson just holding the racing line, and Iro Vizuri, the statement is to Iro Vizuri that you're going to have to find your way past. I'm not going to open up an opportunity or make a mistake. And, well, he's now pulled to that inside line just to try and bait Vizuri into going for the move, but no move made for the number 61 Mercedes, just staying in that 7th place in the class at the moment, behind Dan Wilson, and Gary Barham waiting in the background to see if any mistakes are made. Iro Vizuri going tight into the corner, and that might open up Gary Barham's opportunity, because it couldn't just be a mistake on the circuit. The mistake could also be going too attacking, taking that inside line, and well, just getting shut down by Wilson, which opens up the door to Barham. But Vizuri is for now at least holding on to that position while attacking Dan Wilson very well. These three, of course, very, very experienced on the circuit, and very, very experienced with each other, having raced a lot of times in the past. But Iro Vizuri now has the opportunity to go to the inside line into the final corner. Dan Wilson leaves the door just about open, but not quite that open. It's going to be alongside for the main straight. Once again, the blue flags are coming out for the number 46, the race leader, coming through as well. And this could get just that little bit messy. They are blocking the driver in P2. They're blocking Nepotekit, and that is going to be absolutely furious about that. But in the meantime, they're 3 wide into the first corner at the GT3 card. Who's going to be out on top? It looks like it's going to be Iro Vizuri, but he runs himself off the circuit. The opportunity then for the driver around the outside, the BMW, but there's contact. Back onto the circuit, and back onto the circuit. Ahead is Gary Barham in the end. Dan Wilson filtering his way through to P2 in this battle, and Iro Vizuri dropping to the back of it, but it's not quite all said and done yet, as Barham and Wilson still alongside. If Wilson has to brake too early, then that could open up the door to Vizuri once again, but Barham backs out of it, or Wilson backs out of it. Barham's ahead, and well, that one got very spicy.
It certainly did. I wouldn't be surprised if Gary Barham has a little bit of suspension damage from that impact. It was a huge impact on the right-hand front of Gary Barham. And unfortunately for him, Iro Vizuri might have picked up a bit of damage as well in all of that. Now getting lapped by Matteo Bouquet, but it was really hairy as well at the top of the hill with the hypercars. Patouche and Nepotekit making their way through. Here comes Bouquet round the outside of the 2 BMWs. But it just shows how those squabbles in their own tiers do play a massive factor on this racing, especially in the hypercars and any other category. You're not alone around this circuit. It's not your battle for your own category. You've got to look out for everybody else's battles as well. So Nepotekit has brought that gap down to 4 tenths as Craig Starkey is now being put under pressure from Jordan 40 as well. There's still plenty of battles being made around this circuit as Roland Sooks is around about a minute clear. He's 41 seconds clear of Richard Cook, 30 seconds clear of Richard Cook in second. So absolute domination in the LMP2 category. And same with Timmy Lettinen as well, who's 12 seconds clear in the LMGT3 category. So for Sooks and Lettinen, they're dominating their own categories, but for Patouche and Nepotekit, their battle rages on. As you can see now, they're stuck behind Clemente Evore, and for the Ferrari, he's just able to make his way through, and the Porsche has to sit behind for now.
Yeah, and while Sooks is leading his class, he's actually ahead of Sebastian Borgerson even in the hypercar, so he's doing very well at the moment as pulling alongside the 2 drivers in the 2 different cars as Nepotekit makes his way through and pretty cleanly on that car. just behind us, Patush now 1.2 seconds up, and he's opened up the opportunity that he might be able to hold on to, where he's just got that 1.1 second gap, which means there's not going to be any slipstream or anything of the sort for him. Looking slightly further down, looking at, well, speaking of Borgerson, and speaking of Shooks as well, they are fighting away as down the main straight. We might have a fight on for this would be P number 2 in the LMGT3 class. It's 40 fighting with Starkey, and Starkey just right in behind. He's looking for an opportunity to get through on 40, but 40's defences are too stout at the moment. Again, this could get messy just like before. Is it a rinse and repeat of the last couple of times that we've seen the hypercars try and get through and get tangled up with the GT3s, as they are under no obligation to let them through? They have their own race, and of course double points. They will care so much about all of these positions, as it can really benefit them in the championship. That's a hypercar blocked in, and that is the inside line for Craig Starkey. He's going to be absolutely furious, is that hypercar. But yeah, that's going to be, well, that's going to be a hotly contested issue, I think, throughout this entire race. Don't forget, we've still got 50 minutes worth of lapping to go, so we could get more and more frustrated hypercars coming out. But yeah, for now, it's all just fun and games. But Eero Visuri, or it's Craig Starkey even, potentially holding up a couple of hypercars, and there's one still following through, so they might not even have been able to make their way through on Starkey. And yeah, they continue on for, well, another lap of this circuit. For Craig Starkey, it's lap 16 for the hypercar that's just still stuck in behind. It will be the lap number 18, so 2 laps now is what they've lapped them by, and it's actually Matteo Bouquet who's struggling to get through the cars in front, and just, well, he's made his way through now, and he is up a position and in to that, well, holding that 3rd place. But it's the momentum, isn't it? And you just really want to keep that momentum up.
Yeah, you certainly do. And for Rich Green as well, he's been held up a little bit by Craig Starkey and Jordan 40 in all of that. That was the LMP2 car that was just tangling behind them just before Matteo Bouquet made his way through. Now Timmy Lettinen gets lapped by Mika Patush at the front of that hypercar field. And for Patush, the traffic's really working in his favour here, because as he gets by, the LMGT3 traffic just has to stop on the apex just before Nepotekic's able to get to the inside line. So it really is helping the Ferrari here around this circuit. Of course, traffic, you can win or lose races just by a few tenths of a second, thanks to the way they either hold you up or you get let by just before the other car. So it just really is all about traffic placement and where you catch the back of them. And for Sebastian Nepotekich, he's kept catching up to the back of Patush, getting within that 4/10 of a second window, and then instantly seeing it all fade away, thanks to being held up by a bit of traffic. And this is really helping Matteo Bouquet as well. He's closed that gap down now to Nepotekich by down to 7.5 seconds. It was 10 seconds about 10 minutes ago. So he is slowly making inroads on that top 2. Question is, can he make enough by the end of this race? As least 2 at the top of the field catch up to Di Cantagna as they head into the Sino Interlagos, and the Ferrari of Patush is going to be held up slightly here by his sister LMGT3 car.
Yeah, it's disappointing for those cars that are hypercars, of course, to try and make their way through. But at the same time, it's that's just the nature of the way things go, where you just get stuck in behind, and you might get yourself caught in a rut. Nepotekich really stuck behind Roland Shooks at the moment, trying to lap everybody in this field. And well, at the moment is doing a very good job of doing so. And actually, he's not stuck behind Roland Shooks. He is stuck behind, I believe it to be Alexis Westrock, someone in the LMP2 class. Can't quite work it out, but either way, he's made his way through now. Richard Cook in 2nd place at the moment. He has barely come across anybody this entire race, but he does have Patush and Nepotekich bearing down on him. So they could play a factor in the fight for the lead of the race, but for now they will just they'll keep plugging away at each other, I think, and that that goes for the likes of Starkey, Stegging, and 40, where they are together on the circuit. They're going to want to remain together for as long as they can. It benefits everybody to do so.
It certainly does, and here comes Nepotec to the outside of Patouche into the Delagos. Is there going to be a move made from the top two here as Patouche runs a little bit wide and checks up just in front of the Porsche, who's now going to be blocked in by the LMP2 car there as they head into turns 6 and 7 and 4. The Porsche, he's just going to have to sit behind a bit more for now, but it'll be more and more frustrated as the laps and the minutes tick by. Yes, we've still got a long time left in this race, but you want to get in front. You want to build that advantage over your compatriots in your category and break away from the rest of the field. And as this squabble continues, Mateo Bouquet slowly sees himself streaking into this gap and eating into it ever so slowly as we now exit into the Yun Sao for the left-hander to now progress by, and up the hill we shall go. This, of course, to run all the way to turn 1, the center S's, and look how close Sebastian Nepotec is. He's really hugging that inside as Patouche. Nepotec will try find a bit more of the inside, but won't be able to. Pulls to that right-hand side, the outside line for the Porsche, inside for the Ferrari. Who's going to be braver on the brakes? Who's going to hold on to this position? Patouche just able to hang on for now, but now it's the run out of the center S's, and it seems the Ferrari just got that launch a little bit better. And for Nepotec, once again, his attack has unfortunately been defended. That's a really big, a really nice defensive drive so far from Patouche to hold on to this race lead.
Yeah, it feels like he's taken every opportunity he can to stay ahead. And yeah, Patouche at the moment just driving very, very well, driving to the peak of what I think he would be capable of defensively. And yeah, doing a very good job as it stands. And well, this one will develop. It's very difficult as well to keep track of all the action when you've got multi-class racing, because of course you've got these two fighting. You've got Starkey and 40 and Stegging still fighting for those positions in the GT3 class. And speaking of them, they've headed on to lap number 20, and it's 40 ahead of Starkey, ahead of Stegging in that order. And it could be the opportunity for Franklin Stegging to close in on Craig Starkey as the cars, the hypercars, make their way through. The blue flags are being waved, and they've gotten out of the way pretty comfortably for what appears to be yet another lap as heading down the main straight. Nepotec versus Patouche. Who is going to come out on top as we head on to lap number 23? It's the outside, it's the inside. Nepotec is baiting and dummying everywhere on the circuit, but Patouche not falling for it, just daring Nepotec to do everything he can to get through, and then just simply planting himself on the racing line and holding position still.
Yeah, lovely stuff here from Patouche, but now could become under some pressure into the Delagos, but the lap traffic just comes and saves him at the right time, or does it? He's to the inside of Waldridge there. Is he going to be able to hold on to it? Yes, he is, as Waldridge goes off the road to help defend. That is Dan Wilson nearly takes out Nepotec. It's a blind corner, of course, turn 5 of the Delagos, and oh, that was super close between the pair. As you can see, Patouche now to the inside of Iro Fazuri. Nepotec just being held up slightly, but he's also helped by the fact that Barham is in front of the Mercedes. Barham is in front of the Ferrari hypercar of Patouche, and he will also let through Nepotec just as we head into the Pico to Pato. Once again for Sebastian Nepotec, Patouche defending really well down that main straight. What he's doing is he's hugging that inside line, and Nepotec on that run, when he tried faking it to the inside once more, saw a little gap form, but as the circuit bundles up to that left-hand side, it just unfortunately closed up once more. So for Nepotec, he's got to try build that gap back in once more. He's got to try and make some more inroads as that gap's back up to 1.1 seconds when it was 2 tenths, only one lap ago.
Yes, it feels like they're just taking their opportunities. And they're just making Patouche at the moment is driving absolutely incredibly, and Nepotec is pushing potentially over the limit to try to keep up, which is exactly not what you want to do, but it's certainly what you get the inclination to do at this point in the race, where you do feel as though you are on the back foot and wanting to plant yourself on that front foot and close that gap. Once again, Nepotec running over the curbing pretty much everywhere he goes, and it appears to be a hit and miss. It didn't work out of the center S's, but it's working out of the Delagos, and he's closed back into the 9/10 of a second now into the center S's, or the other S's on the circuit. It feels like this is going to be a good chance for him to catch up, and Nepotec has really locked and loaded.
Yes, he certainly has. Look at that, bringing that gap down to 7/10 of a second. That battle between Starkey and Stegnick has faded out thanks to that traffic coming through that they are being lapped by. And that gap is now 1.1 seconds between the pair as Espatouche getting past on Simon Kingsbury, as Nepoteket will now follow him through. Matteo Bouquet now 4.9 seconds behind. The Porsche, the Peugeot is slowly creeping back up. He is gaining more and more as they catch up to the traffic, this top two, and they start to squabble amongst themselves. Nepoteket needs to get this move done before they catch the traffic once more, but the difficulty is Patouche is able to just put his car in the right places and is driving the widest Ferrari hypercar known to man at this stage of the race. And I think this could very much here, Joseph, be won or lost in the pit stops. If Nepoteket stays out a little bit longer like he did in Imola, having to put a little bit less fuel on board and then be able to just push on for the remainder of it and have a shorter pit stop loss, he could see himself overcut Patouche in front, or will the Ferrari combat that and try and put off a similar strategy?
Well, I think it's going to be a case of Mika Patouche comes into the pits, Nepoteket follows him in. So I think Nepoteket will be ready to come into the pits at any available opportunity and just try and match exactly what Mika Patouche is able to do and continue to apply the pressure and potentially at some point force a mistake. That's the idea, at least, I would imagine, as we reach what will be it's just under halfway point in this race. 39 minutes and 23 seconds left on the clock, and well, it continues to come down, but these two match so very well all race long, and Mika Patouche leading the way as it stands. And well, it's going to be Nepoteket chasing in that second place, that has been for so long. They continue for yet another lap 26 of what will be around 51-52. And it's Patouche who continues to hold that advantage.
Yes, it certainly is. As we have about to hit that halfway, well, we have hit that halfway stage, should I say. I'm sorry, as we now see Nepoteket unfortunately catch up to the back of Franklin Stegnick and co, as he's all over the back of Patouche once more. And again, he's going to be dropping time massively through this next stage. As actually Patouche, I say that, has been held up by Craig Starkey. And oh, that was very close between the pair of the top two in the hypercar division as Starkey tries to find his... Patouche finds his way around Starkey. Of course, the Mercedes has to keep his eyes everywhere because he's in that scrap with both 40 and Franklin Stegnick, as we see into the Pico to Pato. This time around for Nepoteket, it's a bit more delight on his face in this LMGT3 traffic. As you can see, Patouche being held to that inside line by Jordan 40. I was about to say he's not been held up too much by traffic, Nepoteket. And then coming out of the inside, he gets held up slightly by Jordan 40 as this battle rages on. And Bouquet has brought that gap down by 2 seconds in the course of all that traffic. He is really flying up to the back of this top two. We could have that freeway scrap back on once more.
You've got to make your own luck in racing and make your own luck to close back in to the first few drivers. Bouquet certainly has, and the number 93 might have an opportunity here that he would have never ever expected to have. Bouquet, third place overall, and now just 2.5 seconds behind Nepoteket. Bearing in mind, just a few laps ago, he was 10 seconds behind, so the chances are rife for Bouquet to close in, to catch up, and to potentially overtake the cars ahead. And he certainly has the momentum on his side, whereas Patouche will be used to that defending. He won't be used to having to push flat out. Nepoteket won't remember what it's like to push flat out with no cars in front of you because of the fact that Mika Patouche has been defending for so long. So it's just the mentality shift that Matteo Bouquet is about to bring to the battle for the lead of this race that is about to very much spice it up.
He certainly will, as Nepoteket will try and get by before the Peugeot is able to catch up. Of course, they have one more car to negotiate when they catch to him in a moment's time, and that'll be Timmy Lettenham before they catch up to the back of that pack once more. As Bouquet has brought that gap down to 1.9 seconds. He really is starting to close in onto the back of Sebastian Nepoteket, but it's a Porsche finally able to find the code and find the keys to unlock the defence of Petouche. Petouche holds the middle of the road. Nepotech might be able to find the inside line. No, he sticks to the outside once more, and surely the Ferrari is going to be able to hold on to this one unless he goes deep into the centre S's. He does not, and he is able to hold on through turn 3 as we now enter into the Retro Posta and into the Sino de Lago once more. Is this going to be a move from the Porsche? He's getting closer. He's tucked up into that slipstream. Is he going to dart to that left-hand side? No, once again, just seeing himself behind the Ferrari, and will be really annoyed at seeing the back of that hypercar in front. And for Nepotech, he's trying everything, but the more he tries, the more time he loses, and the more chance for Bouquet to catch up and get back through.
Yeah, the more chances that they allow him, the more chances that he is going to take, and Bouquet 1.7 in behind. And the chances are rife right now, especially if he's going to be able to close right in with those cars that they are going to have to lap. And Bouquet is making that gap smaller and smaller by the second. It's 1.2, it's 1.1 now. It's potentially under a second heading out of the final corner on to the main straight. So Bouquet doing incredibly well to close that gap in, and he is in a great position right now. Looking a little bit further back and looking at some of the fights in the GT3 field, Eero Visuri, Gary Barham, they are going at it. Eero Visuri feels like he keeps getting closer and closer to Gary Barham and keeps opening up an opportunity, but Barham keeps shutting it down. Here, though, that could change. Visuri inside line, Barham trying to take the wide line, trying to make the switchback work. Is he going to be able to? No, because Visuri pretty much parks it on the centre of the circuit and holds on to the position. So Eero Visuri knowing exactly when and where to defend, and that has paid off for him. And with Dan Wilson 1.5 behind, Visuri will be happy that he's not going to have to sustain any pressure from in front and behind. He can just now hold off Barham, whereas Barham has a whole other issue in himself in terms of where he's going to fight. And well, they're going to head out of the final corner, what will be the 26th time, and just over half an hour left.
Yeah, just over half hour to go, and here at Visuri able to hold on to that position for now against Gary Barham, but the BMW will fight back. Of course, these two had contact earlier on in the race, and it really did potentially put into some strife the BMW, and might have just stopped his pace somewhat, as you can see. I think that's Roland Sux, actually, the LMP2 car, just making his way through. As Nepotech is dropped 1.1 seconds now behind on Micah Petouche. Of course, these guys are going to be coming into pit lane very shortly. I'm expecting probably around about the 25-minute window, potentially into the 20 minutes left on the clock is when I'm expecting this top 3 to come into pit lane. Bouquet is now 1.3 seconds behind on the Porsche, but as these three try their best to battle on, they're catching up to the LMGT3 traffic once more, navigating their way through there. Will it favour Bouquet again, or will Nepotech finally get that tough break he needs and be able to catch back up and carry on this perfect streak? And with 32 minutes left to go, it is still all to play for at the front of this field, and this battle for the hypercar win is the only battle for the win we have on the circuit at the moment here, Joseph.
Yeah, with the way that Roland Sux and Timmy Lettinen have driven, I'm not surprised as well with their just impressive performances they've done so far. Jordan Forty doing well in second place in the LMGT3 class, as well as, well, Richard Cook doing well in the middle of nowhere pretty much in the LMP2 class, but he won't mind that because of the implications. He is, well, he's in the middle of nowhere, but he's in the middle of nowhere in P2, and there's many worse places to be. There's only one better place to be, and that's in P1. But yeah, at the moment, he, I'm sure, is just comfortable with where he is, and he can settle for that position. These slower races are just, they allow the opportunity for the driver to take a step back and to really evaluate what they're doing, whether fighting on circuit or just waiting off circuit is good enough, and potentially around the outside into the first corner for Dan Wilson, switching to the inside late, and Gary Barham not quite expecting it. Contact between the two, and Barham squeezes out Wilson this time, who shoots himself off of the circuit, and I think he's done well there to avoid too much damage, but still, damage will be on that BMW, and he drops to 19th overall.
Yeah, and it's also something I've just spotted here, Joseph. I said about the pit window, It could be even closer than what I once thought. The windscreen wipers have turned on. Have we got some late race drama with the rain now coming down on the circuit, especially for these hypercars? Will make this an absolute ice rink on these slick tyres. And this now changes everything. For Batouche, what seemed like a somewhat comfortable race lead, just having to defend, is now where he could potentially see himself sliding off the road, and he did on the exit of turn 7 up into 8. So we could see the wet tyres come into play, and we know Matteo Bouquet is good at these strategy decisions and also good in those conditions as well. He's very fast in the wet weather, and if he's able to close down that gap a little bit more and get the pit stop when he needs to and time it right, he could see himself into the race lead. Here comes Patouche. Is he coming into pit lane? No, I think it's just a little bit too dry thus far for the wet weather tyres as Roland Sux comes into pit lane from the lead of the LMP2 category. This is going to get very spicy indeed here, Joseph, as the track gets greasier, gets more slippery, and we see drivers make more mistakes. So far for Mika Patouche, he's got that 1.1 second advantage, but Bouquet is closing in on the back of Nepoteket, and fast.
He certainly is. He's 8/10 back now, and it feels like he's going to be able to get through soon, as I think only some parts of the circuit are bad in terms of weather at the time being. I think it's around, you know, where the circuit almost meets in the S's and down the straight as well, which is why it feels like it's more affecting than it is, because of the fact that it's at the part of the circuit where it's all so closely matched together. And well, that is where the rain, it feels like it's raining more than anywhere else at the moment. But of course, it's most likely to continue, the rain. And well, are we going to be getting any pit stops on this occasion? We'll have to wait and see as to whether that is going to be a possibility. And well, it's going to be Mika Patouche heading out of the final corner. Nepoteket 1 second behind, and we do have a pitter, and it's the leader of the LMP2 class, Roland Schucks.
Yes, Schucks, of course, did come in to pit lane, and he's come out just behind Richard Cook and Remy Alexander Borgshow. What tyres did he go on to? That is the question. If the game shows us, he's gone on to another set of the mediums. So for Roland Schucks, on the medium tyre, he'll need to get those up to temperature quite quickly, but that could be a costly error if the rain does come down that little bit more and it does start to get greasy. You can see it really is starting to mist up over this circuit, isn't it, Joseph, with this rain coming down. You can see the track's a little bit more shiny than it was at the start of this race, so the rain certainly is having an effect on the track somewhat, and this is where real driver skill comes into play, where of course your car's sliding underneath you, you're trying your best to keep it on the road, be pushing to your full grip and your full advantage. It's all down to driver confidence now and how you feel inside that cockpit, and this is not the drama you want if you are leading your respective category. For Roland Sux, he might be able to get his move back done on Richard Cook in a few moments time, but for Nepoteket, he's having a little bit of trouble getting past this LMP2. There's a yellow flag somewhere on the road as well, as Richard Cook, I think, might... Oh, no, he's coming to pit lane. I thought he might have gone off. But for Patouche, he's extending that gap over Nepoteket, who's really struggling with traction at the moment.
Yeah, and I can tell you who it was that had the problem, and it was Rich Green in the LMP2 class, who was having problems, and I believe span round out of the final corner, which is disappointing for him. But yeah, I mean, that's just what's happening. As he went, yeah, exactly. Well, I've just found the replay. He went slightly offline, and he was punished. So that is really the name of the game now. And Green into the pit lane, he can see that it is wet and too wet to race. There's a few drivers into the lane, and well, we'll see what they're going to end up doing. I assume they're just going to be preparing themselves for the wet conditions, but I mean the drivers that are out on the circuit, for example, the likes of Mika Patouche, who's going to have to go offline to go and lap these people. I think it's going to be very difficult, and that was a little bit of a squirrely exit from Patouche. He's getting very squirrely, I think, and well, Nepoteket looks like he might have had some problems of his own. 4.8 now, up to over 5 seconds. It's definitely time to switch.
Certainly is, and Borgenson's coming to pit lane. Bouquet is just coming out now. Borgenson's gone onto the wets. Cook's gone onto the wets. Green's gone onto the wets. Is Bouquet time this strategy right? And is he going to be able to find what he needs? And he is onto the wet compounder tyres. This now changes everything. The final 20 minutes of this race are really going to be touch and go for Patouche. He's going to be coming into pit lane now, and look how hard those windscreen wipers are working on the Ferrari who's coming into the pits. And Nepo Tekit, his chance at a perfect streak, I think, might have just gone up in the clouds of rain. As you can see, it when it rains, it pours for the Porsche. And what has been a 4-race win streak might just come to the end at the 5th. We saw Roland Sux come to the end last time out, and here for Nepo Tekit, the same fate might just apply. But the real question is, where does Bouquet come out in relation to Mika Patouche? Has he timed it right, or has Patouche just stayed out for the extra lap he needed to have that pace over the rest of the field? This is what it all boils down to. The middle sector split last time for Mika Patouche was a 43-4. And actually, Patouche is coming out of pit lane. He's just out of his pit box. So Bouquet might be quite a way behind by the time the Ferrari exits this one. As you can see in the middle sector split, he's coming up to it now. Bouquet was actually down on Patouche's previous best. As we can actually see Patouche now exiting down the pit straight. I think he timed this one to perfection here, Joseph. And he's gone onto the wet tyres at the right time, and he's going to have a sizable advantage not only in front of Nepo Tekit but Bouquet as well.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about how Bouquet gets those strategies right. It looks like today it's Mika Patouche's turn to get this strategy absolutely nailed, stone dead on. And yeah, indeed, he is. He's now 7.5 seconds ahead of Sebastian Nepotekit. And, well, the top three very much split. So the three different strategies coming into play. Bouquet coming in first. Nepotekit not coming in too long after. And Patouche, the third driver in that group to come out. And, well, at the end of the day, it feels like Patouche has got that strategy absolutely right. Don't be surprised as well if that is the end of the on-track action. As off the line, it's going to get very, very slippery.
Yeah, it certainly is, as well as Timmy Letzlin comes into pit lane from the lead of the LMGT3s. And actually, Roland Sux might have just seen himself... Oh no, he's actually just been able to get onto the wet tyres in time. I was going to say, he might have just seen himself, unfortunately, lose out on another win thanks to a strategic difference from himself. He's made 2 pit stops, but is still 30 seconds clear of Richard Cook in second. There's a yellow flag on the circuit, excuse me, I don't know who that is for, around the track. Someone's gone off at the Sao. They've got back onto the circuit now. But look at that gap that Mika Patouche now has over Sebastian Nepotekit. That gap, 9.6 seconds. It's coming down quite quickly. Has Mika Patouche potentially had to start Lycoing, or has he been caught out by a little bit of traffic? This is what it's all going to boil down to. Who's better in these conditions? And for Patouche, it's going to be side by side with Letton on the exit of the pit lane. It's really all just about how this final stint goes and who's more confident in these conditions, as that's exactly how you find time in the wet weather. It's all about driver confidence, driver grip. Just overall, it's more mental than physical in these wet weathered conditions.
Yes, these wet weather conditions are going to change things up for the better, I'd say, for the racing, because it's just going to test the drivers in a way that they have not been tested before, I think it's fair to say. And, well, it's interesting, especially for the battle for P5 in the GT3 class, because they were matched together, they're still matched together, and it's Woolridge, Barham, Vissuri, Wilson, and the Catania in that little scrap down at the bottom of the field. And well, I say to put it down at the bottom of the field, it's because of the fact that the GT3s are slower cars than the rest of them. Aniro Vissuri looks like he might have just lost the place to Dan Wilson as they head down the straight for the 32nd time and only about the 4th time in these wet conditions. But it's still going to be Woolridge who leads the way in that group. Gary Barham 2nd place, Dan Wilson in 3rd, and it looks as though they are going to in fact stay in those positions as they head out and head towards the Interlagos.
Yes, they certainly are, as you can just see. Cars everywhere on the road. Roland Sux, Hendrik de Vries, I think, is in this as well. As we head into the Interlagos now, Woolridge versus Gary Barham is raging on too. in all of this. When the likes of Batouche and co catch up to this squabble, they're going to have an amazing time and a fun time trying to navigate their way through. As you can see, Waldridge just able to hold on for now as Dan Wilson is scrapping away. I say that Waldridge was able to hold on. He's just lost it on the corner exit and unfortunately sees himself sliding out of contention for that 6th place. And unfortunately, will drop down to 10th by the time he gets back to the circuit. As Batouche is actually catching up to these guys now, it is certainly going to be quite eventful as they see themselves go 3-4 wide at certain points on the road. And especially in that battle between Fazuri, De Catania, Wilson and Barham, they're all fighting tooth and nail for position. As you can see, the yellow flags just popping up everywhere as drivers make more and more mistakes. And that's for Craig Starkey, who was 3rd place in class, and he's out! Craig Starkey in these wet conditions for the Mercedes driver with his first podium of the season. And unfortunately for the man, the owner of GRDC, he has crashed out in the dying embers of this race. Crucial heartbreak. Oh, that one is going to hurt for Starkey as he is out here in Brazil. And that's all that hard work he's had over the past few laps undone. And the Mercedes has to wait another day for himself to get back onto the podium.
All that hard work he's done over the last hour as well, all undone with not much in it. I think it's fair to say just the one mistake, and it's cost you entire quote-unquote weekend, and that is very much disappointing for Craig Starkey. And well, he now finds himself out of the race as they continue to try and filter their way through the field. It's getting a bit more difficult at this point, though, now, isn't it? Because of the fact that the spray's coming up, because of the fact that you're going to have to force your way through on the wet line, it's so much harder to well, I say to overtake, but I think that's the most accurate description.
Yeah, it really is. It's actually Roland Sux has gone off. That just shows how treacherous these conditions are. The man that's so dominant in the LMP2 category has just gone off himself. That's going to allow Richard Cook to catch up quite a margin. As someone has actually gone off at the Interlagos as well, I think, and brought out a yellow flag. It just shows how treacherous these conditions are. And the rain certainly has poured down on this circuit. The amount of spray these drivers are kicking up as Sebastian Nepoteket is the next driver to be catching up to this pack of cars of the likes of Fazuri and co. As Batouche was able to make his way through, lost 4 seconds in the process of doing that. But yeah, when it rains, it certainly does pour for Craig Starkey. Unfortunately for him, is out, and Ivarone as well, battling for that championship with Timmy Lettinen and De Catania. He's a lap down from the rest of the field in the LMGT3 category, so unfortunate for him. But for Timmy Lettinen as well here, Joseph, the man leading the LMGT3 championship, with his 2 title rivals down in 5th and then in 10th place respectively, with double points on offer. It's exactly what he needed, and this will give him a healthy advantage as Roland Sux comes into pit lane. I think there's damage, and another race win might have just gone out of his reach, as Roland Sux, who was 20 seconds clear in the LMP2 category, saw he had that off, might have just lost it near the end.
Yeah, he might have just lost this one right at the very end. You have to keep the bottle in order to win races and win championships, and at the moment that could be that. A very unfortunate incident, but that could certainly be at the end of the race with just the 17 minutes left. I think now, more than ever, you don't want to be making a mistake. You want to keep it pointing in the right direction, and you want to keep it on the circuit, but unfortunately not all of the drivers have been able to do that, and so that is where we face the consequences. We've managed pretty well, to be fair, all things considered, to keep our drivers' DNFs to a minimum, and well, now that I say that, we're going to get about 5 DNFs in the last lap, who knows, but yeah, it's a very, 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 very good statistic that they've got there, and they're doing a very good job with what they can do. And well, we're going to head on to the next lap on this race, and it's for the leaders, it's going to be lap number 40, but for everybody else, it's going to be either lap number 37 or lap number 35, so a huge deficit between those two, all things considered. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting throughout the rest of this season as to what is going to happen with the top drivers, whether they do feel affected by things like the spray or not, but we will see. Personalities come out in the drivers.
Yes, we certainly will. as this season progresses. You can see the amount of puddles now being just put onto the circuit. And I think Alexis Wiesrock has also made a mistake, as now Timmy Lettonen's made his way through, and he's actually coming to pit lane 2. Lettonen now is actually going to finish in front of the one of the LMP2 cars in the field, and Sooks is still in the pit lane. So for Richard Cook, he's now a lap clear of Roland Sooks, and this is just looking better and better for Cook as he can take the second non-Roland Sooks win of the season. Of course, the streak was broken by Thomas Lovrek last time out in Imola. Here in Brazil, in the dying embers, Sooks made the mistake, and Richard Cook might just reap the rewards from it. As the rain came down, the unpredictability came, and for Richard Cook, he will pick up his first race victory of the season. The best finish so far in the division of a second place, coming in round 1 in Bahrain. So it just shows how tides can change, how the weather can change things here, Joseph. And for Richard Cook, it's changed it for the better, and he's going to pick up his first race victory of the season.
Yes, it's a great opportunity now, and some of the drivers fighting to the very death of this race, but now they're filtering out with 15 minutes to go. I think a lot of the drivers are just seeing the end of their races, as we have our first DNF of this race. Remy Alexander Borgso unfortunately dropped out a few laps ago, and yeah, he was not looking at the races here today, and yeah, he dropped out of it after all is said and done. And well, we have another driver coming into the pit lane, and it could be a very, very big name into said pit lane. And well, we'll just see as to what is going to occur with the drivers in that pit lane at the moment, and they're just trying to sort themselves out. Surely they cannot be in pit lane for too long. Yellow flags are out on the circuit, and that is going to be, I think, the number 6.
It is. It's going to be the number 6 Porsche Penske of Sebastian Nepotecki, who's unfortunately gone round at the top of the hill at turn 8, just before we hit the likes of Pinarino, and that's what brought Bouquet into play, and he was closing in actually on Petouche, was Nepotecki, but unfortunately with that mistake, all that hard work is undone, and surely that now gives the Ferrari the opportunity to snatch his first race victory of the season. But I don't know what happened to the Porsche. I saw the yellow flags on the timing tower, and I saw that gap just increase massively, and we saw him off the road at just before turn 8. And unfortunately for Sebastian Nepotecki, he's going to have to rely on this second place finish, and with double points being on offer, this might actually give Petouche the championship lead. Now heading out of this evening. No, he's third in the standings, so he won't take the championship lead. It's Bouquet who's second in those drivers' standings. But this will be Petouche's best result of the season, of course, breaking that perfect streak of Nepotecki. It's only finished second once, and that was last time out in Imola. So onwards and upwards for the Ferrari. Some good results so far this season. And for Sebastian Nepotecki, he's going to be coming under pressure from his championship rival, the man second in the standings, Leo Bouquet.
I can tell you exactly what happened to Sebastian Nepotecki, and well, he was going through the S's, which is I believe it was actually the exact corner that we can see him going through now. But what ended up happening was there was a car already off of the circuit straight on here, and I think Nepotecki sort of got thrown off by it and overcorrected himself to avoid going into him, and ended up just going left instead of right into the wall, and that is what did it for Sebastian Nepotecki in terms of the fight for that, or the holding onto the comfortable second places, and making it just that little bit more uncomfortable. But yeah, that was certainly not ideal for Sebastian Nepotecki, who now finds himself just that second ahead of Matteo Bouquet. And this is going to be a very tense finish. 12 minutes left in the race, and Bouquet, we've seen him take his time so far this race. We saw the one mistake that dropped him off the very well-balanced fight between himself, Petouche and Nepotecki, and P2 is hotly contested.
Yes, it certainly is. Bouquet trying everything he can to stay with the Porsche in front. Starting to lose that little bit of time as these laps do tick by. for Mateo Bouquet. Might just run out of things by the time he catches up to the back of Sebastian Nepoteket, and Sebastian might actually just break away from Bouquet. I say that, he goes wide at the Interlagos, so this really is helping Bouquet. The more mistakes the championship leader puts in is exactly what Bouquet wants. Puts the Porsche under some pressure here, Mateo, and you could see yourself claim that second place. Now, as we head up into turn 8, it does seem there's more confidence in that Peugeot than there is the Porsche. Maybe thanks to, of course, up at turn 8 here and that off at Sino del Lago. That Bouquet may be able to capitalise if he keeps potentially flashing the lights, just looking for lunges potentially into some of these corners and just trying to throw the Porsche offline. He certainly could see himself move up into this second place as the rain hammers it down onto the circuit. You can see the puddles forming across the road, all over the curbs. You can see it most clearly here on the exit of Yensao. The puddle just completely takes over the whole of that exit curb. You don't want to be caught out onto there. And for Mateo Bouquet, that gap 0.6 of a second. We will have some slipstreaming in the rain. It won't be much. Still, he could see himself get closer and closer as they both go really wide at the top of the hill.
Yeah, very wide there. And, well, the two green cars fighting it out. Mateo Bouquet just in behind Nepoteket by about 0.4 of a second, but a poor first corner from Bouquet means that the momentum swings right back to the way of Nepoteket. That is the way that it's gone so far, where the momentum is just swinging. There's no real driver who's taken a grapple on this race, out of those two at least. And yeah, they continue to fight yellow flags out on the circuit, and we'll have a look as to who or what that is for. And, well, I'm not 100% sure. It might be Alexis Weissrock, who's had some problems, and I think potentially, indeed, it is. But now we're back to green flag racing. Everybody is back okay. And, yeah, it's the fight at the top of the field that is grabbing the attention and grabbing the headlines heading towards the end of this race. Mateo Bouquet, Micah Patush, and Sebastian Nepoteket fought it out so well so early on. Bouquet made a huge mistake. Nepoteket made a small one, and then himself made a huge one, which allowed the opportunity for Micah Patush to break free. And I think he has, well, he's performed impeccably. He can be delighted with the way that this race has gone.
Yes, he certainly can be, and actually here Bouquet did get past Nepoteket, and that really does now help the man second in the standings, and that will surely slice that gap in half on Patush, sorry, on Nepoteket at the top of the standings, and if not, claiming that championship lead as we head up into the center race. There's another yellow flag on the circuit. There's a car going slowly there. That's the hypercar of Hendrik de Vries, I think, just getting out of the way nicely for second and third in this race. But there's not really any more battles throughout this field. It's just going to be this battle for second as that Ferrari goes straight off once more. It is Hendrik de Vries in fourth place now, a lap down to Nepoteket and Bouquet. But really unfortunate race for Hendrik de Vries. He said it last time out, he just doesn't cope well in the hypercar, especially in the rain. Just doesn't have the confidence he has in the likes of an LMGT3, and it's a massive learning curve for him. But as we see, heading up into turns 6 and 7, we're going to have Bouquet versus Nepoteket rage on for the remainder of this race, as I think there could have been a mistake there from Frankenstein. No, there is not. Someone has gone round on the road, not sure who it is, as we see Mateo Bouquet start to eke out that gap over Nepoteket, and he could have that second place in the bag with 7 minutes to go.
Yes, he may well do. Well, I'm just hopping around the different drivers at the moment, just having a look to see who's making the mistakes, what's happening, and it appears to be that Alexis Weissrock is struggling in these wet conditions. So I don't think he is the only driver to be struggling in these wet conditions either, as we head towards the end of this race and the rain gets worse and worse, and the windscreen wipers are getting ridiculously quick. And, well, I think, well, especially Micah Patush's front wing or front view mirror, it's getting very, very, very murky. And it's going to be murky conditions to win this race, but he won't care if he's able to pull this one off. And Sebastian Nepoteket has dropped a little bit of time to Mateo Bouquet. This is Bouquet's opportunity to really break free at the top. 8/10 now between the two. Make that 1.2 seconds as a poor exit opens up the opportunity. This could be all said and done for Mateo Bouquet for that second place.
Yes, it certainly could be. One mistake then just shift that tide. Now 6 minutes 23 seconds left on the clock. It is still to play for as Waldridge gets out the way nicely of the rest of the field. And we now head into turn number 8. Number ticket is held up slightly by Franklin Stegning, so that's not helping him at all in this battle with Mateo Bouquet. He's still being held up slightly. Of course, Stegnick doesn't have to get out of the way of the road, and he's struggling here is the Porsche to be able to get that foot down. Of course, the GT3 cars have traction control. The hypercars do not, so they could excel a little bit more in these conditions. And he's finally passed his Nepo ticket on Franklin Stegnick, but that's allowed Bouquet to now get another car in between himself and Sebastian, and that gap's up to 1.6 seconds as the Peugeot laps Jordan 40 one more time. 5 minutes and 30 now left on the clock. We really are in the dying embers of this race, and during all of this here, Joseph, Mateo Bouquet has brought that gap down to Mika Petouche by around about 8 seconds. He's really flying up to the back of the Ferrari, and I think Petouche might either just be bringing this one home or has made a mistake himself.
I think potentially Mika Petouche has made that mistake, and I will have a look now to see what has happened to the man that looked so very comfortable at the top of the field. But yeah, he's just getting a little bit more uncomfortable, I think, towards the end of this race as he's taking his foot off the gas, proverbially, I can't speak. But it does look like he had a lot of traffic to get through that second sector, and that might be why Petouche had so much time loss, as he had to get through, I believe, about 8 GT3 cars in that one lap alone. But yeah, Mika Petouche has managed to make his way through them and now finds himself 6.3 ahead as well we head on to the last few laps of this race. He, of course, controls the pace at this point, so maybe it's a ploy to make sure they do one less lap.
Yes, it could also be a very tactical play here from Mika Petouche. He might have to Lyco to the end of this race. We did say his time in the pit lane was very short indeed, and it was a very quick pit stop, and that could be, in fact, he might have underfueled slightly. So for Bouquet, it might not all be said and done just yet. He'll find himself onto the back of the Ferrari hypercar, but has lost a little bit of time heading out of the inside, and that's due to some traffic just getting in his way. As we now head into the Centre S's once more. Over the course of these last few laps, these drivers have been in around about the 1 minute 40s. So it's super close throughout this field. As someone has gone off in front of Mateo Bouquet, I'm not sure who that was, who just went off there causing the yellow flag, but he is getting closer to the back of Petouche's Bouquet. But I think with only about 3 laps to go in this race, I think his time will run out by the time he does catch up to the back of the Ferrari here.
I think that's very potentially the case, and it's going to be all so tense towards the end of this race. 3 minutes 15 left on the clock, and more yellow flags out on the circuit. Not sure what those yellow flags are out for, but there are certainly yellow flags out on the circuit, and well, we're just seeing him, Petouche, struggling with a bit of traffic, and Bouquet taking the opportunity to close in ever further. 3.2 seconds. This is going to get very tense towards the end of the race as Petouche desperately trying to work his way through some of the cars up ahead. And, well, the latest driver that he's managed to pass is Simon Kingsbury, and he now has a bit of clear air ahead of him before he gets up to Dan Wilson. So I think he's going to be all right on the circuit, and I think that's going to be the last car that he's going to have to lap, but never say never, and it could cost him in this race. 3.5 seconds back to Bouquet, and I think that's going to be the closest that Bouquet's going to get, you know.
I'm not too sure. Petouche has got the coming into pit lane symbol on his car. To me, that screams he is very, very low on fuel. and he could be potentially having to coast to the end of this race, and you can see how much Bouquet is really starting to gain onto the back of Patouche. We saw the drama last time out in Imola with some late race fuel problems for Nepotec. He just made it to the line with enough fuel to spare. Is Patouche trying to follow a similar fate, but this time around the Ferrari is going to be coming under a lot more pressure from the Porsche behind. That gap 2.7 seconds, and he gains loads in that middle sector to Matteo Bouquet. This could come down to the final lap of this race. We'll have one more after this one. Who is going to come out on top? That is going to be the question. Is it going to be Patouche? Is it going to be Bouquet? And of course Patouche has Dan Wilson in his way. Gets out the way quite nicely though. Does the BMW. As that gap comes down more and more. This is going to be very tense times. If you're Patouche, you're trying everything you can just to hold off enough fuel to go flat out for that final lap. And if you're Bouquet, you're praying to the heavens. They've already opened up. Can they just help you that little bit more to just give you that extra little bit of pace over Patouche, and potentially the Ferrari run out of steam near the end? The final lap will begin shortly, and as the Ferrari gets stuck a little bit behind the Porsche of Lettinen, Bouquet 1.9 behind.
He certainly is, and well, out of the final corner, Patouche is struggling as well, just to get that little bit of push off. But yes, it's going to be a very tense one towards the end of the race as Patouche crosses the line with 30 seconds to go. Bouquet picking up all of the slipstream that he will possibly be able to do as he goes down the inside into the first corner and desperately trying to get the car ahead out of the way. He's moved out of the way successfully, has Timmy Lettinen, and well, it was going to look very close between Bouquet and Lettinen, but Bouquet has made his way through Patouche, 1.7 seconds up, and I think it's going to be a very tense one. Both of them have expended everything, and as the checkered flag is about to be waved, the final moments tick down, and Patouche is 1.1 ahead, having expended all of his energy, and Bouquet, having expended all of his fuel, is going to try and chase. Just 7 tenths, 6 tenths. It's getting all 2 tenths out on the circuit. 46 leading 93, and Bouquet is going to try and make his way through. He's on the outside line. Has Patouche got anything to try and fight back with? He holds the inside line, squeezes Bouquet, because Bouquet was aiming originally to go to that inside line, but no such luck. He has been squeezed out, and Patouche trying absolutely everything. Both drivers are going to tiptoe to the line here, and Bouquet sitting in behind. I don't think he's going to have enough. The final braking zone is just about to come up, and Bouquet gets a great run. He holds the outside line. Patouche tries to take the middle of the circuit, tries to add a little bit of doubt in the mind of Matteo Bouquet, but he's added doubt to his own mind, and wide goes Mika Patouche. He was in such a dominant position for the majority of this race, but he's run out of steam at the end, and it's going to be the victory going home for Matteo Bouquet. Incredible performance just to keep it going. Absolutely no fuel in the car, but enough to take him over the line. And in fact, Sebastian Nepotec is going to take that P2 as Patouche crawls to the line. He expended too much, he pushed too hard, and it all came back to bite him.
It certainly did, and for Mika Patouche, for what could have been a delightful win here in Brazil, he weathered the storm until the dying embers. We thought he was low on fuel. It was very touch and go, and that's exactly what happened. And for Matteo Bouquet, the man second in the standings, that is exactly what he needed for his championship picture. Oh wow, how that race went there. That was absolutely amazing. Down all the way to the wire. It's Richard Cook who's going to break Ronan Sux's streak in the LMP2's category as well. He's going to be the third different driver to win in that category, and Sux, another mistake from him. Sees Cook pick up that victory. And for Timmy Lettinen as well in the LMGT3 category, as his championship rivals faltered, he takes the crown and will go even further ahead in those drivers' standings. And for Timmy Lettinen, he will be delighted with that one. Same with Cook as well. His first win in the series as he's about to come up to the line. Sux and Green have already finished, but Cook will now just make his way across the line to finish off his race. But for Matteo Bouquet, I think that now takes the championship lead away from Sebastian Nepotec. And for the Peugeot driver, that's how you want to break the streak. Nepotec's perfect run comes to an end, 2 weeks in a row we've had perfect runs come to the end as Cook crossed the line in the LMP2 category, capitalising on Sux's downfall has brought him to the victory there. But a superb race that was there, Joseph, and it all came down to the wire.
It very much came all the way down to the checkered flag. And don't forget double points. So Mika Batush might have just thrown any sort of championship fight that he would have had out of the window. He certainly weakened it by dropping those 2 positions right at the very death. And that is the difference between a race winner and a championship winner. Mika Batush just pushing himself very, very hard over the first few laps. And that was what did it for him as Bouquet and Nepotekit crossed the line with about 20%, or about... They crossed the line for the final lap, about 20% left. They finished with about 15%. Patush, by contrast, crossed the line with 7%, and he used it all up. He was 1% by that second sector when he used up all that energy, and that is Mika Patush's day. It just summed up. He pushed so well. He deserved that victory, but he just couldn't get it over the line.
Yeah, he just couldn't get it over the line in the end, and it's really, really unfortunate there for Mika Patush. You saw him just crawl to the line. The desperation kicked in on that final lap, and unfortunately for him, for himself, falter in the dying stages. But let's head now back over to the comms corner. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to seeing mine and Joseph's beautiful faces. But yeah, that was a superb race all round. And we can actually hear from Timmy Lettinen here, Joseph, if we head over to the GRDC commentary chat. Get a few words from the LMGT3 race winner. Right then, here we are in commentary box. So we've also got Richard Cook as well, but shall we start with Timmy Lettinen? He was the LMGT3 race winner.
Of course.
That's if Discord allows me to drag him in. Joseph can... Oh no, I can't. There we go. There we go. Hello, Timmy. Can you hear us?
Yes. Hello. Hello.
Hello. So that was a superb race from yourself. Just talk us through it. How did you find things there over the course of the hour and 15 minutes?
Yeah, pretty good. I was driving throughout and kept P1 and yeah, finished P1 obviously. I don't know what you want me to say. Was just, yeah, driving.
It just seems like it was a very quiet race from you out in front. Of course, you took pole, and then on that opening lap, you already built a gap of 2 seconds by the time we got to the end of it. It just seemed like utter domination from yourself. Just how difficult was the changeover period between the slicks to the wets?
Not very actually. Game came at a good time because I already had to pit for fuel. Yeah, I went 1 lap over because I was on the start-finish straight and I hadn't done my fuel, so I got a little confused and it was already too wet. But I guess I didn't lose much time there, and yeah, it came at a right place when you already had to change tires. I don't quite understand why some people had wet tires from the start. Maybe there was a mistake with the setup or something, but yeah, it wasn't too bad, to be honest.
Very quiet race for yourself, but yeah, it did seem to just really tip down on the circuit, which made that crossover period a little bit easier to deliver. And of course, you had the hypercars battling away. How difficult was it to keep out of their way? Of course, the top 3 in the hypercar division. How difficult with them squabbling amongst themselves was it to make sure you stay on your own racing line and don't get involved and disrupt any of their battles?
Yeah, it was kind of that, and also just avoiding them because it's a really short track with really slow speed corners, really technical sections, and especially in the rain, it was like there was a lot of cars on track, and many of them were losing control. So you had to really keep your eyes open, and yeah, I mean that made the race a bit more interesting. There wasn't that much going on for me, but yeah, it was okay. It brought another element to the race, which was a lot of fun, because on some track you don't really even see the other cars. Like on Le Mans, they just pass you on the straight, but here it was quite hectic from time to time.
So, of course, double points this evening. You do extend your championship by quite some margin. Is it now in the second half of the season just try somewhat repeat these results and hold on to that championship?
Yeah, I think so. I think my lead is quite good right now, as P2 was. I can't remember the names. I'm sorry, but P2 who started this race, he's P2 in the championship as well, and he was on wets and didn't really get to a high position. So I think I have a quite good lead. So as long as I finish the rest of the races, I think I'll be fine. No pressure.
No pressure indeed. Hopefully hold on to that championship lead. But Joseph, is there any questions from yourself?
Just the one about well, it's interesting to see. Of course, I'm under the understanding that you're going from a sim race into a racing in real life journey. It's one of the important things that sim racing sometimes tends to get wrong is that crossover period between the wet and the dry conditions. Just wondering whether it's good preparation to be doing a dry to wet race like this. Like how easily does it transfer over to real life?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm happy you brought it up. Yeah, I haven't actually thought about it, but to be honest, I guess it's quite similar, to be honest, to real life. I mean, basically every race I had in 2025 has rained at least at some point, so I have some experience with changing weather. In real life, it usually doesn't come that fast as it came down today. It can, but it doesn't. But yeah, on the real race car, we don't really have wet tires, so we just use the semi-slicks for wet as well. So the racing line stays pretty much the same. So I would say it feels quite similar to what we feel in LMU at the moment. And yeah, it's quite good. I think it's good preparation, and yeah, pretty much the same feeling in real life as well. Obviously, it's a bit scarier in real life if you go through a wet corner with like 200 kilometers an hour, but you'll get used to it.
Quite an into that one there to me. But yeah, of course, congratulations on your race victory this evening, and hopefully we'll see you back in the commentary box next week to make it a three-peat. And so enjoy the rest of your evening, and congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Will do. What's the next track anyway?
It's Portimao.
Okay. I haven't really raced there, to be honest. But we'll see how it goes. I hope we'll see you next week.
But good luck for the rest of the season.
Yeah, hope so. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Right, I don't think we're going to get Bouquet in, Joseph, so let's head over to the LMP2 race winner of Richard Cook and see what he has to say with his first victory. Hello, Richard, can you hear us?
Certainly can. How are we doing?
Good, I'm doing well indeed. Joseph, I started off with Timmy. Why don't you start off with Richard here?
Well, I mean, it was one of those races, I think, where it flip-flopped a little bit. So Roland Shooks had a great start and looked very, very not dominant, but in a great position at the top of the LMP2 standings.
Oh, he's dominant.
Talk us through that race, and well, I mean, you ended up winning, so
Yeah, I mean, straight out off of qualifying, we knew Roland was going to be sort of a step above. Follow him on the sort of first few laps. Yeah, nothing for him. So sort of started to look towards sort of battle behind just to try and get a gap, knowing there was probably a bit of rain coming. I don't know what happened to him. Unfortunately, I did see he managed to sort of pit twice and keep his lead. So sort of thought, well, I'll keep in it, keep it steady, because they're not the nicest cars in that weather. Traction control up, half throttle, and it still wants to come around. So yeah, just thought we'll stick with it, see what happens, and yeah, then saw he'd come off and had to pit again. So very nervously crawled around for 20 minutes, and jobs are good.
yeah, I mean, it certainly looked like an interesting race. How quickly did that rain end up coming? Because it felt like it was drizzling for a while, and then suddenly it just came down.
It sort of fell uncomfortably perfectly, almost, is probably the best way to put it. So it started, the wipers came on with, I had about 2 and a bit laps left of fuel, so gave it another lap, then had to pit, and it was still on the way in a bit uncomfortable. Is it going to keep going? Is it going to stop? Because if it had stopped at that point, you would have probably wanted to stay with mediums, but within a lap out the pits, it obviously started coming down heavier, and at that point, in that car especially, it's not a nice place to be. We learned at Imola last week. They're quite sensitive to the correct tyre choice. A lap or two the wrong way, and yeah, you can really impact your race.
Yeah, that's well, rain is it always throws things off, and well, I don't know how much of other sims you've played, but because LMU is just in its baby phase, as it were, as a game, I'm wondering what the early comparisons are in terms of a race like that and a race on, for example, the likes of Assetto Corsa.
Yeah, so I came from ACC predominantly and a little bit of iRacing, but before that had weather. I think in ACC, as soon as it spits, in you go, and it just acts as wet. I think they've done quite a good job. There's varying levels. I think looking at Imola last week, you put wets on, and I wouldn't say I was driving exactly as I was in the dry, but it was close. You could sort of push it, and it felt right. That again, half throttle, quarter throttle, sort of driving around like a pensioner, really, just trying to keep it on. So track to track, it's different. I think they've done quite a good job in general on that aspect of it. I quite enjoy driving in the wet, so yeah, good fun.
Well, I mean, I'm sure as much as you like driving around in the wet, you enjoyed taking the victory more. Max, have you got anything for Richard?
Yeah, a couple questions from me, Richard. Of course, you saw Roland come off the circuit and come into the pit lane in front of you. Was you really then just... Of course, you mentioned you nervously crawled around for the past 20 minutes, but did it take a while to actually hit you that you were going to win your first race of the season, or was it very much, as soon as you saw him into the pit lane, I've got this opportunity, I need to get...
I think it was looking at us again, as I sort of crossed the line, he'd gone into the pits, so I was watching his timer, and as soon as it sort of ticked to 40-50 seconds, I thought that should be safe. But again, you can see how easy it is. You've got lots of other traffic on there as well, so I think Sebastian, at one point, I lost sight of him. He was sort of in a blind spot, and he reappeared, and you're trying to drive your own race, trying not to get involved with anyone else, pick your sort of moments to get past the GT3s. It's still quite intense, really, even though looking back and knowing towards the end I still had a lap's grace. It only takes a small amount of damage on those to really sort of impact your ability to finish. So a little bit nervy, a little bit cautious around everyone, and just try and get it onto the end.
Yeah, of course. Well, in that somewhat middle ground of the field between the LMG3s and the hypercars, just how difficult is it? Of course, be able to lap a division below you while having to look out for the cars that are quicker than you. How difficult is that to really adjust to, and also in that wet weather conditions where there's spray everywhere, you can't see other cars? Just how difficult is it to really see everybody else and keep out of everybody's way?
Very difficult. The problem is, especially in the wet, which takes away sort of the strengths of the LMP2 is corner speed. As soon as you get on the straight, I mean, lap 1, Roland actually kept up until the start finish. He was all over the back of the hypers, so proves what they can do in the dry, just lacking that sort of straight line speed. But GT3s is you want to sort of judge your exit right, because if you're too close, you lose your momentum. If you're too far back, it is quite easy to not get it done, which can land you in a spot of bother. So it takes quite a bit of thought. I think the hypers are the hypers. Same if you're in a GT or an LMP, you just got to keep an eye on the mirror. But passing GT3s, and especially in the wet, I think, Timmy, it took me best part of a lap in a quicker car, because the only places I would normally be able to sort of take advantage, lack of ABS and twitchy sort of car, it makes it very difficult.
But one last one from me before we let you get off. Celebrate your victory, Richard. Of course, we head over to the Algarve next week. The Mal, how are you feeling around there? You confident you can get another podium or another race victory, or what happens?
Victory would be nice. I think it might be a stretch. I like the track. It's a really nice track in LMPs. Just got to watch that sort of left-hand tyre through the last corner. Yeah, I learned the hard way in some of the dailies. You can soon chew that up by trying to get a bit keen. So I think it'll be an interesting race. Hopefully we'll get a few more on the grid. I know there's a couple of entrants who'll be back next week, so it should be a nice size LMP2 grid. Makes for good racing there. I like the track, so fingers crossed for another podium.
That is the next one. Hopefully you do achieve that, Richard. Of course, the double points as well. I think that does do your own championship a whole world of good. So I think that might move you
nice little bonus.
I want to say that might move you up to second place in handing. So a nice result there from you, and you're now on the back, I would say, as well, of Roland Sux, even though he's had that superb start to the season. So championship on the card. So hopefully next week we see you potentially back here as a race winner, but if not, good luck, and hopefully you do get that podium.
Top job. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Joseph. That is going to round off the driver interviews for this evening. I think also it's going to round off this evening's action as well. Are there any last thoughts from you on how that race went?
It was just a very, very good race, I think, to be honest, with all the strategies that were going on, all the fighting and the hypercars that were going on. It was a very well-rounded race and a great way to finish it.
It certainly was a brilliant way to finish off a delightful evening of action. Of course, if you want more carnage and chaos, make sure you tune in once again around about 8:30 time Wednesday for more World Challenge drama and controversy here in around 6 of the season for tomorrow as we start the second half of Champion. But that is going to be all from us here at the GRDC. Of course, many thanks to them, and also Driveline Media for being able to put on our stream this evening. And also thank you to you guys at home. It would not be possible to have a league, or all the drivers as well. Thank you to you. It wouldn't be possible to have this league or even stream it, guys, or the drivers as well. So thank you all very much for watching. I'll be back next week. Not about Joseph, but thank you for stepping in, Joseph. It's a real pleasure to have you here. Familiar face already in the, but We shall see you next week for some more chaos and more carnage around Portimao. Hopefully, well, make sure you stick around and find out. But that'll be all from us here. Stay safe, stay well. Thank you all very much for watching. Goodbye.